You know that feeling when you're staring at a piece of code that's just so monstrous, so tangled, you almost want to just walk away? Well, today we're going to dive into an epic story of a developer who faced that exact nightmare. But here's the thing, he came out on top with an incredibly elegant solution that completely changed his company.
It all started with this one single sentence. Imagine this, it's delivered by a mentor right at a moment of crisis. And it cuts right to the heart of a problem that plagues so many systems. This one idea, it was the spark that ignited a complete revolution in how this company did business. All right, let's set the scene. Meet our hero, Marcus Rodriguez. He's the new head of customer support over at a company called TechFlow Solutions. And he thought he'd just landed his dream job. But what he was really about to do was walk straight into a developer's absolute worst nightmare.
So, picture this, it's his very first day. Marcus cracks open the codebase and he finds this. He calls it the monolithic monster. And it really was. We're talking about a single block of code over 500 lines long that was trying to do everything. Simple password resets? Yep. Critical issues from enterprise clients? Yep. It all funneled through this one single horrifying bottleneck.
And this little snippet here, oh man, it just perfectly captures the chaos. It's just an endless maze of nested if-else statements. Think about that. Trying to navigate this fragile, tangled web for something as simple as a password reset was a nightmare. And the worst part? One tiny change, one little mistake, and the entire system could come crashing down. It was completely, totally unmanageable. But here's the really crucial point, right? This wasn't just some abstract code problem. Oh no, this was a full-blown business disaster. The chaos was bleeding into the real world. You had misrouted tickets just piling up. Simple requests were somehow bogging down senior engineers, while the really complex, important issues were getting stuck with junior staff who couldn't solve them. And the result of all that? Well, customer satisfaction was in an absolute freefall. So Marcus is at his breaking point, right? He's about to throw in the towel. And then in walks the cavalry, a legendary software architect named Dr. Chen. And get this, she takes one look at that monstrous code and she just knows. She knows exactly what to do. She was about to give Marcus a totally new way of thinking about this whole mess.
So what was her big idea? She introduced him to this brilliant concept, the chain of responsibility pattern. It's a game changer. Basically, instead of having one poor soul trying to do everything, you create a line of specialists. A request comes in and it just gets passed down the line. Each specialist, they're called handlers, takes a look. Can I solve this? If yes, great. If not, no problem. I'll just pass it to the next expert in the chain.
And to make it super clear, Dr. Chen used this absolutely brilliant analogy. Think about a hospital emergency room. When you walk in, you don't go straight to the top brain surgeon, right? Of course not. First, a triage nurse sees you. They handle the simple stuff. But if it's something more serious, they know exactly who to pass you to, the right specialist for the job. It's so intuitive and it's incredibly effective.
Okay, so Marcus is totally inspired by this. The light bulb is on, he gets right to work. And he's not just fixing a bug anymore, he's on a mission. He's dismantling that monolithic monster piece by piece and replacing it with this new, elegant, highly coordinated team of specialists, one link in the chain at a time.
First things first, he had to create the blueprint for every specialist. That's the support handler interface. Think of it like a job description. Every single handler in this new chain had to know how to do two things, and only two things. One, how to handle a request, and two, how to set the next handler in the chain. That's it. So simple, so clean, and just incredibly powerful. So here's the very first link in his brand new chain. This is the triage nurse of the system. Its only job was to knock out all the easy, high-volume stuff. It sees a simple password reset, bam, solved, done. Anything else? Not my problem. It just passes the request on down the line. Super efficient.
All right, so next up in the chain, we've got the technical support team. If the first handler was the triage nurse, these guys are kind of like the general practitioners. They can handle the more complex stuff that gets past that first line of defense, things like software integration problems or other weird technical glitches.
And finally, at the very top of the chain, you have the heavy hitters, the specialists, the top surgeons, if you will. This handler was reserved for only the most critical, highest value issues from their absolute biggest customers. Only the toughest, most important requests ever made it this far, and that ensured they got the immediate, expert attention they deserved.
But Marcus didn't stop there. He took it a step further, which is really cool. He built something he called a chain builder. This thing could dynamically create different support chains on the fly.
So maybe you need a different, more streamlined process for after-hour support. Done. A special white glove fast track for your VIP customers. No problem. The builder could just assemble the perfect team for any situation.
So, the big question, did all this actually work? Let me tell you, the results weren't just good. They were absolutely revolutionary. What Marcus and his team achieved over the next 6 months was, and I'm not exaggerating, nothing short of miraculous. First off, let's talk about first contact resolution. It shot up to 95%. Think about what that means. The right request was finding the right person to solve it on the very first try. No more getting bounced around from department to department. And all that efficiency, it led to a 300% improvement in response times. 300%. That original bottleneck was just gone. Now there was a crystal clear path for every single ticket that came into the system.
And the final killer metric? Misrouted tickets. They plummeted by 80%. It was just definitive proof that the new system was working. The specialists were finally getting only the jobs they were actually meant to solve.
I mean, just look at this. The before and after really does speak for itself. Customer satisfaction skyrocketed, a 90% increase. But just as important, look at the team. Staff burnout was cut in half. People weren't overwhelmed anymore by tasks they couldn't possibly solve. It was a total, complete transformation for everyone.
But you know, for Marcus, the biggest win wasn't just fixing the system. It was the shift in his thinking. He now understood the core principles behind it. He hadn't just implemented a solution, he'd developed a whole new framework, a new way of thinking for solving these kinds of complex routing problems. And he actually distilled all that wisdom into a handy checklist, which is super useful for knowing when to use this pattern. So here's the short version. If your process has a bunch of different people who might need to handle a request, if you need to be able to change who handles what on the fly, or if you need a clear escalation path where the original sender doesn't have to know all the messy details, then this pattern is probably a perfect fit. It's all about building flexible, adaptable systems.
And this table does a great job of showing exactly where this pattern fits in with some others. You know, other patterns might ask, how should I execute this? Or which algorithm should I use? But the chain of responsibility is laser-focused on one single critical question. Who should handle this request? That's its superpower.
And really, this was Marcus's ultimate insight. It's so profound. You simply can't predict every possible thing that's going to happen. So the goal shouldn't be to build some rigid system that tries to handle every case you can think of today. The real goal is to build a flexible chain, one that can evolve, grow, and adapt to whatever the future decides to throw at it.
So that brings us to the final question. And this one is for you. I want you to think about your own world, your own work, your projects, your organization. What's your 500-line monster hiding in the code? What tangled, chaotic process could you completely transform with an elegant, effective chain?